that's it. Once January hits, it's on. So far so good. Classes, and the first official day was the 12th. And so in our first week, we've been outside 4 days in a row. It's been great, and we'll get our first scrimmage in today. And it's like anything else. Baseball's a long season, and keep reminding everybody this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So we want to be smart with the body, smart with the arms, but it is exciting, that realization moment, and you guys being here and everything kind of adds to it. Like, the season's right around the corner.
How different is it starting a little bit early, and how do you adjust anything what you normally would have done?
No, the only difference is really like a scrimmage today. Typically we'd be scrimmaging a week from today, and so it's making sure on the front end in the fall and winter months that the pitchers were ready, their arms were ready. But it's good. It's good for them to get on the mound and throw to live hitters. It's of course really good for the hitters to see the ball coming out of their hand and spin, and not knowing what's coming, as opposed to being in the cages or taking BP on the field.
Peter and Tig both spoke highly. It sounds like the guys really came together with the newcomers, the freshman transfers during the offseason.
Well, I think they're taking advantage of what they learned from last year, and you give so much credit to that crew last year of Bivens and Forbes and Kleins, and they allowed the Kamayus and the Jake Monroes, and just how well Garrett Pike cuts. That whole group came together, and so it's like, all right, that's the culture. That's what we want here, and I think Zion and Peter Michael, and you said it, that crew keeping this momentum going. It's not a given. You got to earn it. So they took a lot of time this fall, and our connection and our standards and our commandments, as they like to call it, and so far so good. But you realize we got a long season ahead of us, and but we feel good where we're at today.
Kind of on a similar note, after a strong start last year, then that bit of a roller coaster until the postseason, and obviously you guys got hot. Was there a lesson that the guys kind of took from that to leading into this year?
Well, you definitely, always as a coach, it's easy for me to make sure I've got everybody ready. My challenge to guys often is, you might not be the starting shortstop, but that doesn't mean you practice or act like a backup player. Like, I need you ready to play. And so when Tanner Shiver was needed, and he was ready to play. When Matt Klein went down, they were young, but man, those catchers got thrown into the fire. So I know as coaches, I have to make sure these guys are, you could look at Tate Davis as the star first baseman, but in my eyes, it's okay, especially when Tate runs to the mound. I got to have Caden Shanley ready, where we don't take a step back, whether you're an infielder, outfielder, pitcher. So it's just get these guys ready to go. And then they should have learned, if you get knocked down, which should happen in a long baseball season, you can learn and grow from it. It's not a guarantee, but you can get stronger being on the ground, how you get off the ground and how you respond. And that team had shown all the adversity it went through, with probably Matt Klein being at the center of not being our catcher every day, what that did to our team when he came back in the postseason. So just be prepared when bad things happen throughout the year.
In this day and age, it could be easy for anyone to enter the portal and go somewhere else for any number of reasons. So what does it speak to the players themselves and both the program culture that you were able to retain so much of your production from last season?
And again, I think it goes back to 2 years ago. I think when Bivin and Forbes and Klein and Zion Rose said, you know what, that's not what we want here. We're not leaving like that. And how they dug in and stayed here, that changed everything. And it's not a guarantee every year, but as you alluded to, it's to keep the Tate Davises, the Lucas Moores, the superstar players who as crazy as it is, other schools are actively recruiting them. It's just they're recruiting them in the spring. They're definitely recruiting them in the summer. And so super proud of that group. But you just have to keep it going every year. And it's not foolproof. And I've never been anti-transfer portal. I think it is really good for some kids. Will Bierling, one of our catchers, went to Murray State, and he helped them go to Omaha. So super happy for Will. And we've got other guys that are out there hopefully going to have good to great years this year.
Coach, you lad, it was a decent while ago, but we haven't spoken to you since. Can you just talk about, I know you were watching probably the World Series, talk about what Will did and how special it was on that big of a stage.
Yeah, it's, you're proud of these guys, whether they make it to the big leagues or not. Obviously, those guys that make it, you're like, how hard they work. But Will has obviously put himself in an elite class. For our world, he's our Donovan Mitchell, if you would say that. He's our Lamar Jackson. He's like a star playing for one of the great franchises, and for him to hit the home run. And the play at the plate is probably, we've talked about that play at the plate with the bases loaded as much as anything. He made it look a little easier than maybe it was. So just proud that he's a local kid. He went to school here, and he's obviously wanting to give back. We've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes right now, and things have leaked and this and that, but Will and Kara are definitely gonna do something here, and we're just trying to get our ducks in a row where, as we try to improve our facilities and need some upgrades, Will and Kara are gonna be front and center at that.
When you have gone to Omaha before that next year, do you learn something from all the times that you've been, and you come back in the next year, and obviously the preseason hype and things like that?
I think it's twofold. Back then it was basically the same team with a couple freshmen and JUCO guys sprinkled in, and so that was good and bad of guys getting comfortable, and it's not easy to go back to back. We went 13 and 14, but we couldn't go after 14, and we couldn't go after 17, and maybe we could have gone after 19, but we had a pandemic, and so this is a combination of the culture and the guys returning, but you have so many new guys coming in, and what you saw last year and what you're seeing maybe in football, I think it's wide open. I think there's teams always have a lot of hope and excitement this time of the year, but as I made it clear to our team yesterday, we weren't preseason ranked last year. Murray State wasn't preseason ranked. It's good to be ranked, and that's a sign of respect for your program and some of the returners, but I don't know how anybody can really predict what these teams and rosters are going to look like when the season starts, and more importantly, how do they handle adversity when it hits.
Coach, you lost some arms. Talked about the depth at that position with this squad.
We talked about Peter Michael, Eberle and Schweitzer and some of those young guys that had really big years. Hartman and Schlagater and them are close. I'm excited about, I think, that sophomore group. Usually that's kind of when you explode in our program, like Lucas Moore did last year, where Bivin and Forbes, and then they go to pitch for Team USA. I'm super excited and optimistic. Yes, Eberle and Schweitzer can get better, but a Jake Greger, and Aaron England, a Kason Murphy, a Kean Voister, like that sophomore class, this is their time to shine. Freshman years are usually really tough in baseball. Occasionally you have a few superstars, but the majority of them really struggle. So I think for this pitching staff to come together and has the ability to be a great pitching staff, I'm gonna put a lot on that sophomore class. I think they're gonna help elevate this group.
You always talk about competition in this program has helped everything through the time. Is it not, pitching wise? It seems like competition for everything going into it.
I think this year more than most. Yeah, you could try to pinpoint a rotation and who's the Friday guy and who's the closer and this and that, but I think you could also make a case for these 3 or 4 guys could be the Friday guy, these 3 or 4 guys could be the closer, and yeah, I think, and it's very healthy because there shouldn't be entitlement. Yeah, there's a few guys that stood out me a little more than the rest, but even those that didn't stand out, everybody's well aware of their talent and the struggles they went through, and once they put it all together, as the saying goes, you never have enough pitching. So I feel really good about our depth right now, but it'd be hard to say this guy's throwing here, and here. Some years you have that. This is not one of those years.
As far as newcomers go, whether it be a transfer or a true freshman, who's kind of caught your eye the most so far in the fall and the early stages of winter?
Well, I think, position player-wise, Cade Elam has really stepped in. A high-profile high school quarterback, just a really good athlete coming out of high school. He's physical. I've compared him, and you hate to put pressure on kids, and it doesn't mean he's going to have the production of a Zion Rose. But as I've been talking to people about him, just how mature Zion was when he got here and how hard he worked and how there was no entitlement, I've seen a lot of similarities with Cade. I guess you could say the same with Tage Davis in the sophomore class. And so Cade has a chance to help us and play. On the mound, it's similar to last year's group. And this time last year, we didn't know Jake Schweitzer was going to be the guy he was at the end of the year. So there's a group of really young, talented arms that, have a chance to, a Zane Stahl, a Brandon Shannon, a Nicholas Ballard. Like, the one thing about pitching is they're going to get the ball flipped to them. And we usually need them all. And so, I want to make sure my backup shortstop or the extra outfield or like catchers, I got to make sure these guys are ready to play and help us win. I'm anxious to see what that freshman class does when they get the ball flipped to them.
How much more important is that even with the roster cut down to 34 this year?
Yeah, it is. You just don't, it's hard to say you can redshirt guys and wait for the future. The future's now. And I will say in Roger Williams' benefit and his strength, I think last year 307 Division I teams, I think we had the 5th most innings pitched by freshmen, which is crazy when you finished in the top 4 in the country. It's one thing if you finished 50th in the country, you could say, well, it's because we had all these freshmen pitch. Well, last year we finished in the top 4 in the country with the 5th most innings thrown by freshmen. One thing about Roger Williams, he's given those freshmen opportunities. So now, you look at a young kid where, 5 years ago you go, well, maybe we'll redshirt him and we'll let him learn and grow. And now it's like, no, all hands on deck. And I feel comfortable about that because we've always given freshmen an opportunity to play, whether it's a pitcher or obviously some of the position players.
Is Tate going to get some innings?
Definitely is, and that's where I talk about Caden Shanley has to be ready to play first base. As I talk about sophomores making that jump, I think Tage is clearly one of those guys that can make a jump. And having coached McKay and all the great two-way players over the years, we got to be smart with Tage and how we manage his arm, manage his body, and that's even more of a reason where, when McKay became a force on the mound, I had to get Drew Ellis to come over and play first base, and I had to convince other guys, and so, I want to be smart with Tage because we all have a feeling he can log some big innings for us this spring.
Zion and Lucas are obviously a couple of the big names that you have on this roster. Are you seeing what you want to see from them from a leadership standpoint coming into what is likely their final year?
I was so proud of what they did with USA Baseball this summer, just talking to those people there, how professional they were, what their focus was, how they tried to lead day in and day out. It's just really a lot of smiles from talking to USA Baseball. So they know the standard, they know the expectation when they get an opportunity to wear that uniform and obviously represent our program. So far so good. When the season starts, you just want to keep them grounded, remind them why they had big sophomore years, how much fun they had playing the game, and just, they're used to seeing scouts and professional baseball behind the net, but as I remind, they're going to be behind the net for the rest of your career evaluating you. So don't try to do too much, just play the way you're supposed to play and lead, and so far it's been really good.
Needed to update some signage out there. Is that kind of a cool moment when you get to put up a new World Series year and some All-Americans?
It shows you how much it means to the players. They taped 2025 out there. That means something to them. Like, hey, I was a part of that team that I see every day running out to the outfield. And we have kind of a system in our program. When you have a hiccup or you have a mental or physical mistake, you got to go run and touch the College World Series sign. So it means a lot to them. We gave Lucas Moore the opportunity. I can wait till you leave this program before we put your All-American face out there on the wall. And he thought about it. I'm sure he talked to his family, and I think at the end of the day, it was kind of like, what, it is what it is. I can't shy away from it. And so he gave us the green light, to put his face out there. So it's something that means a lot to them, and adding to this Dog Pile World Series sign behind us as well as out there. It's part of the culture here, no doubt.
Appreciate you, Coach.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.